morning and welcome to Ireland AM. It is Friday, October 18th and it's getting chilly out, so pop on the heat and stay with us for the next 3 hours.
Coming up on today's show, the Israeli military has confirmed that the Hamas leader has been killed in combat. We'll be discussing what this means for the crisis in the Middle East shortly.
We'll also be discussing the rest of what's making the morning's papers, from yesterday's student protest walkouts to Donald Trump's latest slip-ups overseas.
In sport, the League of Ireland title race is heating up in a thrilling 5-way battle. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's Premier Division showdown and the rest of today's big sporting stories.
And today marks World Menopause Day, so we're assembling an all-star team of panellists to discuss the effects of living with menopause and the new HRT scheme.
We're also catching up with a woman living with the skin condition EB, now in the process of gearing up to run the Dublin Marathon with her good friend Colin Farrell.
Plus, from getting locked in a coffin to tailing police raids, crime author Peter James will be telling us the story of some of the many questionable things he has done in the name of research. That is after 9.
And Derek is out and about this morning. I wonder where he is today. Derek.
Gurmila Elaine, we're following our road trips across Longford and Roscommon this week. We've landed down here at the RDS in the Simmons Court Arena, and I'm in my element here this morning because we're down here at the PTSB Ideal Homes Show. Michael Rourke from Electric Ireland Super Homes is with us. Mike, this is a one-stop shop for all your energy needs.
That's right. Electric Ireland Super Homes will take you as the customer with a house to retrofit on that entire journey. So we do deal with everything from the initial survey right through to the design, pre-works, BER and home energy assessment if necessary, giving you the path to an energy retrofit. We then help you get contractors on board, price the job up, doing the job to get you as far down that energy journey as possible, as economically as possible and as sensibly as possible.
And still plenty of SEAI grants available as well.
Yes, so we manage the whole SEAI grant process on your behalf. So you don't have to deal directly with SEAI on this. We can look at what measures we're going to install in your home, and we can maximise the grants by selecting them to fit that model, the one-stop shop
All
model.
right, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have more here right across the room. By the way, you've run the Dublin Marathon, have you? How many times?
Only once.
Only once, like myself. All right, we'll have more here from the RDS. But for now, back to you in the studio.
It's one more time than I run it anyway, let me tell you.
Yeah.
More from Derek a little later on. Now we'll have a first look at your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline reads, ECB rates predicted to reach 2% or lower by summer. The paper reports that the European Central Bank is looking to reduce interest rates to 2% or lower before the summer, which could see the annual cost of home loans for almost 200,000 borrowers fall by more than €2,000.
Front page of the Irish Independent reads, Sinn Féin senator claimed travel expenses after he quit. The paper writes that a former Sinn Féin senator continued to claim expenses for accommodation and travel to Leinster House, even after he told the party he was resigning from the Seanad.
The Irish Examiner leads with, they let Kitty May down on so many levels. It writes that a devastated mother has told of a nightmare sequence of errors that left her 2-year-old daughter with a profound brain injury, stating that she pleaded with medics to, quote, take her clearly deteriorating condition more seriously.
Onto the tabloids, and the Herald leads with missing Kieran last seen in senior infants. The paper writes that the last confirmed sighting of missing 8-year-old Kieran Doran was when he was a senior infant pupil in Dundalk more than 2 years ago.
The Irish Mirror writes, our kind, funny, brave soul. The paper writes that Liam Payne's death has been met with a global outpouring of grief as his family, friends and fans paid emotional tributes after the singer's death was announced late Wednesday night.
The Daily Mail leads with record label dumped Liam before fatal drugs binge. They claim that Liam Payne was dropped by his record label just days before his death.
And finally, the Star leads with Liam's last hours. It writes that Liam's family have said they are heartbroken by the singer's death as police frantically piece together the final erratic last hours of his life.
Now, with the Israeli forces now confirming the death of the leader of Hamas, we'll be discussing the latest updates from the Middle East after this short break.
You're very welcome back. Yesterday, Israeli military confirmed that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has been killed in combat during a firefight in Gaza. Joining us now to talk us through what this could mean for the future of the crisis in the Middle East is security and defence analyst Declan Power. Declan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. A big PR coup for Netanyahu, of course, but tell us first of all, who is this man and what is his significance to Hamas?
Sinwar has been the leader of Hamas and the brains behind the operation that led to the atrocity on October 7th last year. So his thinking and his planning, and which would have been assisted by the Iranians as well, we should remember, gave us the bloodshed and the bloodletting that started this whole business in recent times. But when you delve into his past, Sinwar is symbolic of the issues between Palestine and Israel. His family were displaced from their territory with the birth of Israel. His family would have been very much part of Gaza. He grew up in Gaza. So the trials and tribulations of the Palestinian people were experienced firsthand by Sinwar and his family. So there was a level of hatred for Israel that would have been bubbling away within this man. But he was more than just a receptacle of hatred. He did a long time in Israeli prisons. He learnt Hebrew. He learnt a lot about Israeli culture and politics. And that made him a more effective military and political leader within Hamas. But what didn't get lessened during all his time was his one-dimensional approach to this. So in many ways, you can argue he's the other side of the coin from Netanyahu. The two of them have approached the situation in the Middle East, between Palestine and Israel, from a very absolutist approach. Now, there are some thinkers who would say his death leaves room for a more moderate approach. I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be any moderate approach at the minute. I would nearly say he expected to die. To put this into an Irish context, I'd say he's in the Palestinian mindset, in the nature of his death as well, because he appears to have died in the field, in combat, rather than hiding in a cellar somewhere, that he will be Palestine's Patrick Pearse or Michael Collins, in a way, if people don't find that too distasteful. If we just stand back and look at it, because the power of sentiment is important there. The power of sentiment about this is important to Netanyahu. He has now a win that he can show to his own people. I think it's far too early to say that this is the end of the war. And even if it ended in terms of the kinetic aspect, you know, the battlefield activities, the airstrikes, the drone strikes, you have a generation or more now of Palestinians who have ample fodder to be radicalised. And Israel has to take that into account now in their forward planning.
If we look at this man in himself, and you mentioned what he's a product of, his family were displaced in 1948 with the creation of Israel. He grew up in a refugee camp. Yeah. He was spent more than 20 years in an Israeli prison. And this is what he became. Now, if we look what's happening now and what has happened since last October, another generation and generations to come of young Palestinians, whatever is going to be left after this war, they will be radicalised as well. So that absolutist ideology of both him and Netanyahu, this conflict is not going to be resolved in any way, shape or form anytime soon.
No, you're quite right. And there's another disturbing aspect to this as well, Elaine, as you were talking about his background. While Sinwar was, you could argue he was a victim of circumstances, he also victimised. He wasn't a nice person. He became head of the Palestinian internal security, or the Hamas, I should say, internal security. Crimes. Yeah, to use our Irish parlance, they're nutting squad. Yeah. He would have been in charge of hunting down informers, but also people that he judged guilty, he and Hamas would have judged guilty of not being absolutist enough in their pursuit of a Hamas type of Islam, or for collaborating with the Israeli regime. That could just mean doing business or working with Israeli companies. And he sought people like that out to make examples of them. So this, on one hand, you have this absolutist, nasty, cruel approach that was totally one-sided. And now with his death, you're pushing younger Palestinians to deifying somebody like that and to looking at the world and the Palestinian issue through their eyes. So that creates it multiplies the levels of extremist thinking that are going to exist in there.
If we look back to pre-Hamas days when we had Yasser Arafat, the PLO, and Hamas was seen as the extreme version of Palestinian nationalism, should we say. Yeah. But it's instead of over the last number of years, even from the Oslo Accords onwards to now, instead of coming together, it seems to have gotten systematically worse despite all the efforts over the years now. When we look at the escalation now in the Middle East, we have the spilling over, of course, into Lebanon, which is getting worse by the day. We've Iran at the side of it all. We have the Houthis as well in Yemen getting involved in this. This is escalating to a degree. Can it be dialed back in any way now throughout the Middle East? And how could that happen?
Well, I think a lot of the bigger players in the Middle East are standing back a little bit. I mean, Iran has attempted to go for a play to destabilise and to improve its power and standing by destabilising Israel. Israel's response to this has been a projection of all-out power, that they want to flex their muscle to the point that they will be feared.
It decimated Hezbollah in a matter of days, really.
They have decapitated their leadership. But looking at this from a purely military perspective, from Israel's point of view, is a mistake. I mean, in doing what they've done, decapitating leadership in both Hamas and Hezbollah, they're using a lot of their own intelligence assets. They have a lot of intelligence assets sequestered throughout the Middle East, particularly in Lebanon, particularly within Hamas. I don't really buy the story that Sinwar was just killed in an ordinary altercation between standard Israeli infantry troops. I think it was standard Israeli infantry that killed him, but how this was choreographed, Israel has been pouring a lot of effort into human intelligence, electronic intelligence, in order to decapitate.
They knew where he was.
Yeah, they knew where he was, but to get to that, you're burning up a lot of your intelligence assets, the human intelligence assets. Will this win be worth not having the same amount of eyes at the decision-making table within your enemy's camp? Because a lot of those assets, when the Hamas and Hezbollah organisation do their after-action analysis and reports, they'll figure out eventually who did what. And so a lot of these people will be got out of situ. So your strategic approach is, the question is this worth the burning of the asset? And I think Israel is being somewhat short-sighted here, because they're going to need more and more assets in the way they're prosecuting their operations. It's very military, it's very kinetic. You need intelligence to be able to see over the horizon. And we saw what happened with October the 7th. There are gaps in their intelligence lineup. The longer-term approach would seem to be one, or should be one, that's more conciliatory. And long-term Israeli securocrats, 10 years ago, people who were in Mossad, in Shin Bet, they were a lot of them were interviewed in a documentary called The Gatekeepers, and they all agreed that the two-state solution was the long-term approach that would benefit security in Israel.
But neither Netanyahu or the dearly, no, I won't say dearly departed, the recently departed Hamas leader, they weren't for that at all, neither of them.
No, and I think the only way out of this will be for the bloodletting to get to a point where a new leadership emerges. And I think primarily that can happen in Israel faster than those other parts within Hamas or Hezbollah, because they're so autocratic. I think at the moment, the Israelis will probably give Netanyahu the pat on the back he wants, but what hasn't gone away, and he needs to pay more attention to shore up his political bulwark, are the hostages. The hostages are still in there, over 100 of them. The Israeli government have been cavalier at best with regards to their welfare. What happens next with regards to them? Is he betting on the fact that Hamas will want to cut a deal now and release hostages? I suspect not. I suspect the Hamas leadership expected that they were going to be hunted down like this. I think Sinwar himself, to go back to my Patrick Pearse analogy, the day he put that operation in place over a year ago and the attack that led to the atrocity in Israel, I think he expected that he was going to die, but he was looking at it strategically. And if that's the case, then the Israelis are making the same mistake that the British made in Ireland in 1916.
Declan, thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. Now we'll be back with the rest of the stories making this morning's papers after the short break. You're very welcome back to Ireland AM. Now, news broke yesterday that former Sinn Féin Senator Niall Ó Ganíla continued to claim expenses for accommodation and travel to Leinster House, even after he told the party he was resigning from the Seanad. Now, here to discuss that and the rest of this morning's story is our assistant editor of the Irish Daily Mail, Linda Maher, and Barry McLaughlin of the Communications Clinic. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning, guys. When it comes to this, another row rumbling on for Sinn Féin, tell us the background to this.
Yeah, I suppose it's no political party wants to see a story like this drag on, but it's always interesting when you look at a political scandal. It always boils down to probably one of two things: an inappropriate relationship or money. This is kicked off as someone trying to potentially start an inappropriate relationship with somebody who was younger than them or below the age of consent. So these text messages were discovered. Somebody made a complaint, And while there was no formal investigation done and there's no issue about it, nevertheless, Sinn Féin got themselves in trouble in terms of their explanation about it. Now we're on the money bit. And the money bit is about when this senator left, was he still being paid by Sinn Féin? Was he still paid by the state? Was he still claiming expenses? And it would appear in this story that there's a suggestion that his resignation was in September, but he was still getting payments for a number of months after that as well. So we're now at that stage of the political scandal, the money bit as well. So that's something that will have to be clarified by Sinn Féin in due course as well.
Yeah, of course. And this is the last thing Sinn Féin needed at the moment, really, isn't it?
Yeah, nobody wants to see a story like this drag on. I mean, they're fighting these on a couple of fronts as well. And this is before even the Brian Stanley story develops. And that's one of the things I think they'll be concerned about, because we don't know the full facts. They have a very angry and motivated TD who's determined to take on all comers. He's now out of the party. This is not somebody who joined the party in recent years. This is a 40-year veteran. This is a tough political operator, so he's going to tough it out. His loyalties now have been confirmed. Sinn Féin have made their decision on him, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what other information emerges in the next coming weeks and months.
It says a lot about the party in itself as well, and the strength of a party whip in these sort of instances, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it was actually interesting. One journalist colleague of mine a friend of mine was making the point that normally Sinn Féin are disciplined. They don't say anything. Nobody will comment on anything. You know, whatever happens, there is a party line and that's it. There are now, because some people are leaving, some people are disillusioned, some people are very angry at the way the party have behaved in recent months. There's now people been briefed, people are commenting in the background. This is something that wouldn't have happened 4 or 5 years ago. And remember, about a year, 18 months ago, we've been in the studio. Sinn Féin were riding high in the polls, were going really well.
They were shoo-in for the next government.
There was almost an assumption that this would be a coronation, and look at the way things have turned. Now, obviously the election hasn't happened yet, but certainly Sinn Féin have a lot of housekeeping to do, and they have a lot of persuasion to do around, are they a party? If they can't run themselves properly, how can they actually expect to run a government?
And of course, Linda, with an election in the offing sooner rather than later, not good news for Sinn Féin at all.
No, not at the moment. And I think a couple of months ago, we weren't sure if the government were going to call an election because they probably thought Sinn Féin might be in too strong a position. I think if they're going to do it, now's the time to do it. They've said so many times they're not going to do it that it will be a bit of a stand down, but I think they'd be absolutely insane not to do it right now. It will have to be in the next, as it feels like we've been saying for 2 months, like when are they going to call it? It is coming down to weeks now when they have to do it, if it's going to be before the end of November. So we're probably looking at next week.
Yeah. And there's huge pressure, of course, amongst backbenchers, amongst the Greens, amongst the Fianna Fáil. I mean, maybe Simon Harris is the only one standing firm at this point, but it does pretty much seem inevitable.
I just think strategically it would be nuts not to do it right now. It's, it's like, you're a boxer in a ring, your opponent hits the ropes, you have to keep going, you have to keep pummeling, and that's what they need to do right now. And so I think, definitely, it would probably, certainly within the next 2 weeks, but possibly by next week we'll have a date. And
there's a couple of rules about this. The Dáil, once the Dáil is dissolved, poll has to take place between 18 and 25 days. So if you want a polling day, say on the 15th November, you count back to the October 24th. Or the latest possible dissolution on October the 16th for the earliest. So, we're actually, you could run the whole thing of it done and dusted in November, if a decision is made in the next week or two in relation to it.
Yeah, well, everyone's saying it's going done and dusted by the third week and really in November, so that's what we're looking at here. Yeah. So, bets for an election be called next week, lads? Who's the year, nay?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's as you said, when Micheál Martin, members of the Green Party, that's coming as well. And I also understand there's pressure coming on the Taoiseach himself from backbenchers too. So
now, Linda, another story making the papers today. Students are not happy. We've an accommodation crisis in the country in general, particularly with students. So bring us up to date with that.
Yeah, so the students walked out of lectures yesterday to protest at the cost of education. So basically what it's costing them to go to college, but also I think the biggest thing that they were protesting against was the lack of accommodation for students at the moment. So, I think everybody knows somebody who's either commuting to college from outside the county that that they're in. And it's just, you know, there's a couple of people that the Irish Times spoke to. One does a 4-hour commute every day from Offaly to Dublin to go to college. Like, it's insanity, and it's, you know, and it's not. It's not only is it the pressure that it puts on you and the pressure puts on your time, but it's not a college experience, you know, and that's what everybody kind of, you know, you deserve that in college. And I you know, now I did laugh. So the main points that they wanted, it was the Union of Students in Ireland, their manifesto. They wanted the new plan for student accommodation. They want technological universities to be allowed to borrow money to build and purchase this accommodation. Free public transport, which I think is huge because there's so many people having to live so much further away from college. So I think that's, you know, it's a very practical request. Abolish third-level fees, establish a minimum stipend of 28,000 for PhD students, core multi-annual funding for student mental health services, and increase the percentage of Irish language courses. Now, the one that slipped in there that did catch my eye was they also want to decriminalise recreational drugs for personal use. Okay. As we talk about that student experience.
Just slip that in there.
As we talk about that college
But there's a load of
experience.
student accommodation going up, particularly in Dublin. It's flying up left, right and centre. Unfortunately, it's for the very wealthy people who can afford it.
Exactly.
I know in the street that I live on, the student accommodation is as expensive as the private apartments for normal working people. So they might say they're building student accommodation, but it's not going to have your normal student who can just pay minimum for it.
That's it. And there's a couple of things there as well. Linda made an interesting point as well. The technological universities, they were what we would call the old techs back in the day. They've got vast land banks. They've got space to build proper accommodation if they got the funding and had the support. And I know there were some talks about this before, and the idea is that there would be some sort of a tax relief on that, and the state would sponsor that. So I think the students are quite right to focus on that. But there is another knock-on effect of this as well. I know somebody recently who lives down the country who relies on public transport to take hospital appointments, travel from one city to another, and during the summer this is fine. Forgot about the start of the school year when they actually went in, realised there was 50 students ahead of them. They were all students who would normally be living in the city where the university was. They were commuting, doing that hour or two commute, and that's putting pressure on public transport as well. So there's actually a knock-on effect to this as well. We saw it happen earlier on the week with the Irish Rail timetable. This is impacting a lot of people in more indirect ways as well.
It is, of course. So, and it doesn't look like our accommodation crisis is going to get better any time soon. So we'll wait and see when it comes to that. Whatever about the recreational drug being criminalised, which, of course, as Linda rightly said, was slipped in there. Thank you both so much for joining us on the show this morning. Now, after the break, with the League of Ireland title race heating up in a thrilling 5-way battle, we'll look ahead to tonight's Premier Division showdown and the rest of today's biggest sports stories. That's just in a few minutes.
There's plenty going on in the world of sport this weekend. No better man to break it all down than Daniel Hussey, presenter of the Tackling Sport podcast. Good to see you, Daniel.
Good to see you.
We've got quite a night ahead of us in the League of Ireland because all 5 top teams are playing, 2 of them against each other. The game that we're covering live is the Shelbourne-Waterford game. And it's hard to break a cycle when it's going against you. And Shelbourne, what was it, 1 win in 10 games? 10 league games now?
Yeah, no win in their last 5. I think one win in 10 or very close to that. It's been, I think I saw a stat there this time last month. They were like 15 points ahead of St. Pat's with the same amount of games played, and now there's only 4 points between the two sides. Saying all that, they've had a decent rest, about 10 to 12 days, and they would look at this fixture, Waterford, just the only team in the league not playing for anything, either relegation, European or title race, as a massive opportunity. And if they win this game, they are in the absolute driving seat because, like you said, they're still 2 points ahead of Rovers, Derry, and 4 points ahead of Pats and Galway. And it's easy for people to follow now because all the teams have played the same games, which is, because you're always like game in hand. But Duff will fancy their chances tonight. And as I mentioned, the Waterford not having anything to play for, but sometimes you know yourself that frees a team up. But if the Shells can get over the line, nobody will remember the points total. Nobody will remember how they eked over the line. But it's made headlines, I'd say, not just in Ireland, and I think a lot of people outside Ireland will get a hold of this title race the next couple of weeks, particularly if Shells do drop points and bring the other 3 teams together to it. But it's going to be a brilliant night, and just having Virgin Media covering it and also having the goals being shown at half-time, full-time, I think it's going to be as dramatic a night as there's ever been in the league, just in terms of the amount of teams involved, but also I think next Friday could even be better. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I know. But we're into the final few weeks of the league, and it really is shaping very well. Like Shelbourne should be home and hosed. The cup should be in the cabinet. But yeah, listen, this blip that they've hit has opened it wide open. The two teams chasing behind, Derry and Shamrock Rovers, both of them heading to Louth.
Yeah.
Dundalk will want to put on a show when they take on Derry. And Drogheda, well, they need the points to avoid the relegation playoff when they take on Rovers. So
because obviously with Bows playing tomorrow, Drogheda have the chance, if they do come up with a win, which is it's possible, and Rovers don't have a great record in Drogheda. If they manage to get that win, that would push them right close to Bows and put the pressure on them in their game, which doesn't look that dramatic at the moment against Sligo tomorrow night. But and Dundalk will also fancy their chances again. I think any team in the League of Ireland at the moment will fancy their chances against Derry, because I watched the games on Friday night against Bows and then Monday night at home to Sligo Rovers, and they look like a team not confident enough, and not just the players on the pitch, but I would also say the fans as well. We're getting on the players back a lot earlier than you would think was fair, but albeit there's context there, just given how big their budget is. And you mentioned Shells having regrets about the league. I think maybe come the end of the season, I think the team with most regrets might be Derry City, because they're on course for a double at the moment, yet now they've really thrown it back into Shell's hands over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, those two draws last week didn't help. Pats are taking on Galway. If Shells were to win tonight, whoever loses this game, it will be completely out of any title aspirations. Yeah,
you're almost hoping it's a draw with 10 minutes to go, because I like Galway in general sit in, but surely even John Caulfield will go, right, let's just go for this. But you've also got to remember, Martin, that it's not just the title both these teams are going for. There's the top three for European spots. There's a lot going on. Yeah. Derry, if they don't win the cup, that might bring more European spots in as well. So it's not necessarily like, I put it this way, if it's draw with 10 minutes to go, I still think Galway will sit in on, because that's how I think the game will go. I know Pats went up to Galway and struggled at times before getting a 1-1 draw, but I think this is a full strength Pats team. They don't have any European, so I do expect them to dominate the game, but I'm very nervous for Pats, that whether they'll be able to break them down and Galway can get them on the break. And if Galway do win the game, like Pats, they'd be right in the title race. So whoever wins, I think is going to have a great set, because I just can't see the top three all winning tonight. I just can't. I can see maybe Shells winning, or maybe Rovers, or maybe Derry, or maybe two of the three, but all three, not sure. So the winner of that game is in a title race. It's going to be a fascinating 2 games to go. Yeah.
Listen, Eileen Gleeson has been in the news the last couple of days. And look, they're coming up to a playoff, and a very serious playoff against Georgia. And the comment was made about how she's not looking at League of Ireland players. Not a help.
No, it's not a help, and I feel bad for Eileen Gleeson, because she's probably the face of the FAI at the moment, just because I think there are legitimate points being raised. Firstly, the home-based training sessions not being there is 1 point, and also the second from Kieran Kilduff, that is the Athlone manager. But the second point is the lack of the big gap between under-19s and right up to the senior team. So there was talk of maybe introducing an under-23 team, and it hasn't gone through yet, and because it's, why should we limit to the under-23s? But I just think all that arguing ends up with nothing being done for months and months. But look, 2 League of Ireland players are in the squad. It's not like Eileen's looking elsewhere completely, but look, I think they're legitimate points, particularly on the home-based training sessions, for optics more than anything, and also for a League of Ireland player to go, okay, they are looking at me. Even if you end up getting very little out of it as a national team, I think the long-term benefits are huge. So, but yeah, I did feel for Eileen. I felt it was not too dissimilar to, I think it's about 15 months since Katie McCabe's press conference. You never asked anything about the playoff or whatever it was at the time, or the World Cup, that is, sorry, where Eileen sort of made a similar comment that I didn't get asked much about the playoff to the journalists. So I think it's taken away from that too. So frustrating for all involved, but I do think legitimate points were raised, not necessarily on Eileen Gleeson herself, but the FAI overall,
Okay, let's move on, because tonight and tomorrow we're going to see these games being played at Croke Park, where some of the new rules that are being spoken about are going to be played out on a football field. We got into provincial matches. We haven't had them for a while.
No.
And tonight, Connacht will take on Leinster, Munster will take on Ulster. It's going to, and of course, then we got the finals when tomorrow comes around. These are going to be interesting games, and I'm fascinated to see, especially the 2-point rule from this 40-metre.
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous. I'm actually going in tonight. I'm nervous at how I'm going to keep up to date with the title race, to be honest with you. It's annoying that these things are on at the same time, but I committed to it a couple of weeks ago. But I'm nervous in terms of how it's all going to look. I put out a picture of the 40-metre arc, and a lot of people not happy. It just doesn't look right. So where are all these lines? And I can understand that. And someone made a good point about club groundsmen in terms of, for example, if you have a 40-metre arc for a men's Gaelic a match and then you have a ladies game on straight after, what do you do as a club groundsman? Which is all legitimate points, but the ultimate inter-county aspect of it, I think it should work really well. I mean, just in terms of everyone we've had involved, Jim Gavin, I heard James Horan interviewed yesterday, Malachy O'Rourke, there's so many good people on this and have had really good, strong feedback on the Sandbox game. So I expect it all to look quite good. There is obviously the exhibition nature of the game, so you can never like put all your eggs in this basket. If it looks really good, let's go with all these rules. But Jim Gavin has emphasised he wants every single one of these rules in. A lot of people on the outside are going, oh, maybe just do the 3-on-3. He wants them all, like they're all interdependent of each other by and large, and he wants them all introduced. But yeah, it is going to be interesting. We were just chatting off air, Martin. Is it like, do you take that shot that you wouldn't ordinarily from the sideline because it's going to be worth 2 points, and if it drops short, it might be a 4-pointer, or do you work it in? And there's only going to be 11 players to beat. The goalkeeper can come up and not till the opposition half. Do you wait for the goalkeeper to come up and then it's a 12-on-11? There's a lot going on. I don't know where I'm going to be looking once the game shows in, because it's going to throw in with 1 versus 1 in the middle, for example. So it's already going to look different, not just the lines on the pitch. I think it's definitely worth this weekend, and I don't feel we should overreact one way or the other. But I am expecting to have 2 quality games. And we have to remember where Gaelic football is. I mean, I love the All-Ireland final in terms of the tactical aspect of it, but it's basically Galway got the ball, tried to score for a minute. Armagh got the ball, tried to score for a minute. And it's just that. And the big games in the All-Ireland series this year is just basically like you attack, we attack. We want quick breaks, we want kick passing, we want scores. And yeah, hopefully they've stumbled upon something good here. But it is a big dramatic change, and I'm always conscious of people who don't follow it religiously. That would it be easy to follow, you know? So I'm nervous.
We will watch with interest over the next couple of days. Should be interesting. Plays out. And bring your phone with you.
We'll keep an eye on it. Yeah.
All right. We'll take a quick break, but still to come, we're marking World Menopause Day, and we're also crossing back to Derek live at the PTSB Ideal Home Show in the RDS. Stay with us. We're live until 10.
You're very welcome back to Ireland AM. If you're watching us from a dentist waiting room, best of luck with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's hardly open this early, would they?
Well, yeah, they would be. Of course they would, yeah. Yeah, especially for that drilling business.
8 o'clock in the morning, I doubt it. Anyway.
They start early, those dentists. Good luck with your teeth. Coming up for World Menopause Day, we put together an expert panel to discuss some of the less talked about effects of menopause and the new HRT scheme.
We'll also be learning some pelvic floor exercises to improve our health during and after pregnancy.
I'll be sitting down with an Irish woman living with the skin condition EB who is due to take on the Dublin Marathon next week with her pal Colin Farrell. Emma, she is an amazing woman. You really don't want to miss this. Yeah, one of my favourite people.
We're also chatting to the author who was a personal endorsement from Queen Camilla. He's also bumped into Orson Welles along the way. Peter James is with us after 9.
And of course, Derek is out and about this morning. How is your morning going, Derek? Oh.
Yeah, couldn't really shiver. Look, I'm just putting the finishing touches to the bed. I kind of feel like Hyacinth Bouquet. Anyway, welcome down here to the PTSB Ideal Home Show in Simmons Court Arena. RDS is where we're at this morning. Catherine Kitty Wrigglesworth is with... would you look at this, Kitty?
Hello.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're with IKEA, Kitty, and the design forum is up and running down here.
Yes, we're going to have... a great design forum. We've got a fantastic stand, and we're going to be talking about all your needs.
Yeah, and of course, you have a big team down here right across the weekend. You're catering for everything from big to small, really.
Yeah, we are, and we also have like all our design experts in on hand. You can walk around, you can see, you can test, you can feel everything, and everything we have is replicated then in store as well.
Yeah, now there's a big focus on sleep this year down here at your stand.
Yes, we do. So we have noticed from all our research that 1 in 2 people in Ireland don't get a good sleep. So we have really honed in on 6 sleep essentials essentials that are really going to help everyone get a good night's sleep, and that's what we're really going to hone in on then.
Okay, I get about 5.5, 6 hours. That's not good, is it?
It's not great, no, I wouldn't say so. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, we'll have more from Kitty and the crew. It's your destination for inspiration, really.
Absolutely, for all your needs.
All right, we'll have more here for Kitty. By the way, happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
Yesterday, was it?
Yes.
Okay, happy anniversary. 1 year married. Not me and Kitty, but her husband. Back to you guys in studio.
What, Derek and Kitty's husband are married?
Yeah, I think,
Oh, God,
I think that's what he said.
Let's start a row.
Yeah. Now, he looked very good at plumping those pillows, didn't he? He should do a job in here one of the days.
Handy's a small pot, as our Derek.
He absolutely is.
Now let's have another check on your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline reads, ECB rates predicted to reach 2% or lower by summer. The paper reports that the European Central Bank is set to reduce interest rates to 2% or lower before the summer, with the cumulative impact of these cuts seeing the annual cost of home loans for almost 200,000 borrowers fall by more than €2,000.
Front page of the Irish Independent reads, Sinn Féin senator claimed travel expenses after he quit. The paper writes that a former Sinn Féin senator continued to claim expenses for accommodation and travel to Leinster House, even after he told the party he was resigning from the Seanad.
The Irish Examiner leads with, they let Kitty Maid down on so many levels. It writes that a devastated mother has told of a nightmare sequence of errors that left her 2-year-old daughter with a profound brain injury, stating that she pleaded with medics to, quote, take her clearly deteriorating condition more seriously.
On to the tabloids, and the Herald leads with missing Kieran, last seen in senior infants. The paper writes that the last confirmed sighting of missing 8-year-old Kieran Doran was when he was a senior infant pupil in Dundalk more than 2 years ago.
The Irish Mirror writes, our kind, funny, brave soul. The paper writes that Liam Payne's death has been met by a global outpouring of grief as his family, friends and fans paid emotional tributes after the singer's death was announced late Wednesday night.
The Daily Mail leads with record label dumped Liam before fatal drugs binge. They write that Liam Payne was dropped by his record label just days before his death.
And finally, the front page of the Star reads Liam's last hours. It writes that Liam's family have said they are heartbroken by the singer's death as police frantically piece together the final erratic last hours of his life.
After the break, we're separating the facts from the fiction as we discuss all things menopause. We'll see you for that in just a few minutes.
You're very welcome back. Today, October 18, marks International Menopause Day, a day dedicated to raising awareness for menopause and the supports which can improve a person's health and well-being.
We're joined now by GP and women's health specialist Dr. Kiva Hartley, sex therapist Audrey Casey and menopause workplace consultant Catherine O'Keefe. You're very welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Morning.
I feel in recent years we've gotten better about talk about menopause. There's more awareness, but why is it so important to have a special day designated to speaking about menopause? Catherine, I may start with you.
I think it's all about, whilst we've made, huge progress, we still have a lot of work to do, and unfortunately we know there's still women that are suffering in silence, and I think really days like today are just another opportunity to get the awareness out there, to get the conversations growing, and it's also just for women to feel it's okay to talk about menopause and that it's really all about support over silence. And I think, these days are very important, and as we know, it's kind of more nearly a month at this stage, but it's all very important to support women.
Quiva, when we look at the changes that have been made over the years when it comes to dealing with it, for some women, they sail through menopause. In fairness, it doesn't affect them too badly. I have 5 sisters, some of them are grand, but some of them, like me, suffered horrifically. Yeah. And there are awful symptoms associated with it that can be masked for something else, particularly if you go through it early. What are the main ones that are the most, damaging to a daily life for a woman?
So it's highly individual, as you've pointed out. I think you can split it into perimenopause when women are still having periods, but their hormonal production has changed. Typically, although I'm generalising, that's from about 45 onwards, but it depends on the person. And then there's menopause, which is your final period. And then if you go a year with no bleeding, at that point, then you are postmenopausal. And these different stages have different symptoms. Most women, when they're perimenopausal, talk about mood and emotional symptoms. Things like irritability, anxiety, low mood can be really common. This is a time when a lot of women actually start getting hot flushes and night sweats that we so commonly associate with menopause. And then there's other physical symptoms like dry skin and dry hair or hair thinning, joint aches and pains, and vulvovaginal symptoms like vaginal dryness, painful sex, bladder symptoms. It really depends on the person, unfortunately. Yeah.
So you mentioned there painful sex. Audrey, you're a sex therapist. What changes can someone expect during the menopause to their sex drive or their sex life?
What I find, I suppose, with clients that are coming into me specifically when it's, issues around desire and libido associated with menopause is that they feel that their desire has just dropped off a cliff. And whereas they would have had, spontaneous desire or even receptive desire to their partner and, whatever they were having whenever they were having sex, whether it was weekly or monthly, it's just they don't feel like they want it at all. And there's a lot of grief and loss in that, and then there's guilt for their partner, and then there's there's soreness, as Caoimhe mentioned, that because of dryness, and it's a very emotional time. And because they're exhausted as well, they might not be sleeping. They're coming to me and they're saying, is it gone forever? Am I ever going to feel desire again? And I'm so tired, I don't even want to, but it's not there. Is it coming back? So it's a very emotional time for women.
On the flip side of that as well, when you're in perimenopause, I suppose your hormones are trying to rev up your ovaries, so you can get the opposite of that as well when you have your sex drive goes through the roof. Absolutely. And people don't talk about that enough either, because it is a symptom as well. It's not just the opposite end of it.
Absolutely, and I do find that we tend to focus on the negatives and the how do we help situations if there is issues. But I think that women in their 50s are sometimes having the best sex of their lives.
Yeah,
and we don't.
It's not all bad.
Yes,
the hormones are all over the place, but it's not all bad.
There's less chance of pregnancy. Obviously, that goes out the window, and then you don't have to deal with a period. So there's definitely positives.
But when we look at a cohort of women, though, when it comes to women in work, and I was speaking to an eminent professor recently in women's health, and she told me the biggest fall off for women and highly skilled women in the workplace are in their 50s, because they're just, this is too much, I am not bothered, I'm going through so many physical symptoms, my job is too much pressure. There's no understanding, little if no understanding, despite what's happened in recent years with awareness, because it's not talked about enough, it's not appreciated enough. So a lot of women are going, just feck this, I'm off, I'm out of here, why bother? And that's a real issue.
Huge issue, and I think we know that 96% of women, want support in the workplace, and they want that it's more than a menopause policy. And I would find with the workplaces I've worked with, so many of the female staff will say, they feel seen, they feel heard. And I mean, that's a major plus for any employer once you start opening the conversation on menopause, because that is what women want. They want to be heard. They want to be understood that brain fog or anxiety is really causing a challenge to their working day. And, the big impact I see there is the impact on self-esteem and confidence. So we've got to remember that, menopause, it is a chapter. And as you say, there are good points to it as well, Elaine. And I think as employers, it's supporting women through that chapter, because, we want to stay in our jobs. We're the fastest growing demographic in the workplace. So it's really important that employers are part of this conversation and are supporting female staff and also managers, so that managers are equipped to have conversations about menopause.
Okay, and hopefully we'll see an improvement in that. Caoimhe, I might come back to you and talk about maybe some of the treatments. So the term HRT, I think if there's a bit of confusion, there can be a lot of discourse around it. Are there any areas in particular that can be a source of misinformation on HRT?
Oh, there's lots of misinformation about hormone therapy. How long do you have?
About 4 minutes.
Yeah. No pressure. Speak really quickly. Yeah. So HRT is hormone replacement therapy. And in a nutshell, it's estrogen is what we want to replace. So that's the hormone that makes you feel better primarily. And there's different ways of taking estrogen. You can take it through your skin. People have probably heard of the patches. There's gels, there's a spray, or you can take it by mouth as a tablet. They carry slightly different risks. So there's different ways of doing that. And then we give another hormone called progestogen if women have a womb intact. So if you haven't had a hysterectomy. So the progestin is there to protect your womb from estrogen. So that's where it gets confusing, is because there's different types, different ways, different brands, different products. And what suits one person won't suit the next. There's an awful lot of individuality in trial and error.
Is HRT suitable for every woman, though? Because some people should not ever take HRT.
Yeah, HRT is suitable for almost everyone. Like, there's definitely caveats to that. And there's women, for example, women who've had a history of a hormone-dependent cancer, like certain types of breast cancer. In fact, any breast cancer, really, we would try to avoid HRT if we can. So there's some medical conditions where we're not keen to prescribe HRT. We look at non-hormonal alternatives. We've excellent alternatives. We've medications without HRT, without hormones in them, that can treat some of these menopausal symptoms. But the majority of women can take HRT and can have that discussion with their provider.
Can do it safely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the misconceptions. You'd asked about misinformation. Things like breast cancer, there is a small increased risk of breast cancer. It's about putting it in context. It's about talking about the benefits too and looking at that as an individual.
And HRT is to become free from January. So how do we feel about this?
I mean, I'm delighted. Anything that removes barriers to accessing anything.
It cost me a fortune.
So, that should be across the board in women's health. Anything that removes a barrier to accessing something that is beneficial for your health and treats symptoms and makes people feel better, then, fantastic, great. I suppose we need a bit more detail and we need more information about what's actually going to happen, but no, I welcome it, yeah.
But there are some issues as well. I know with me, I was in an awful state before I started. I had menopause in my early 30s. We've talked about this before on the show. But there's health reasons. It's not just for the feeling better, for the want of a better phrase. I mean, if you get a premature menopause, it can have impacts for your bone health.
Absolutely,
osteoporosis, arthritis, osteopenia in later life. So for someone like me, for example, if I didn't go on HRT, I'd have brittle bones by now, to be quite honest. So it's not just about the mood swings and the hot flushes. It can have a real proper effect on your physical health and your quality of life and your longevity going forward.
Particularly younger women, as you say. So if you stop having periods under 45, that has a consequence for your health, and HRT is fabulous at treating those consequences and reducing the risk of bone density loss, reducing cardiovascular risk, and essentially kind of bringing those risks back to normal as if your periods hadn't stopped. So definitely benefits there.
And Audrey, I suppose when we look at the ramifications on relationships as well, and particularly if the sex is out the window basically, and it's the time of life when women are busy, they've got kids, school runs, everything else, hormones are all over the place, and the last thing you want to do is have a bit of slap and tickle in the bedroom basically. So men really have to be brought into the conversation here as well.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that the most successful outcomes is when the partner attends as well. So often women will come initially and they'll talk about the symptoms they're having and how their libido has dropped, and they feel a lot of pressure to fix it alone. And you feel alone anyway because your body is changing. So I always actually ask them to invite their partner along. And as soon as that happens and their partner is in the room, and we're discussing, how sex has been and how it's changed and what they would like it to be, there's much more of a connection and the communication lines are open and there's much more support. And then we can talk about a blueprint and we can talk about a plan going forward where, to minimise the risk of any kind of painful sex, because nobody wants that. And initially, I would say even take, intercourse and orgasm off the table as a goal, and let's talk about how your body has changed and what feels good now and what feels like it's building arousal. And look, we make a whole new blueprint, which is why a lot of people end up having the best sex of their lives.
We could talk about this all day.
We could.
We're running out of time, but thank you all so much for joining us on the show this morning.
For more information on the topics discussed today, check out hse.ie/conditions/menopause.
After the break, I'll be sitting down with a woman living with the skin condition EB who is set, wait for it, to the Dublin Marathon with her good mate Colin Farrell. See you in 3.
On October 27th, Ireland's best and bravest will be facing the elements as they run in the 2024 Dublin Marathon.
Well, this year, if you pop down, you might even spot one Colin Farrell among the runners, taking part to raise awareness for the skin condition EB alongside his friend Emma Fogarty, who lives with the condition.
And it's really funny because he said he might have to walk most of it, because I was chatting to Emma about it earlier this week and I sat down with her. But first, we'll take a look at her and Colin's action plan for it.
Hi, I'm Emma, the patient ambassador of Deborah Ireland.
Yes, she is. I'm here to confirm that's the truth. My name is Colin. I'm the friend of the patient ambassador from Deborah Ireland. Emma?
I don't know. But we have some news.
Yeah, what is it? We're doing something in October 27th of this year, 2024, the year of our Lord. You and me are going to run the Dublin Marathon, which has no business taking place in October.
No,
but it is.
Emma Fogarty. This is a momentous year for you.
Yes.
Did you ever think you'd be doing something like you are doing to celebrate your 40th birthday. So for our viewers who may not know, tell them what your cunning plan is.
Well, I am joining Colin Farrell to do the Dublin Marathon. So he's doing the 42 mad kilometres of the marathon, and I am joining him for the last 4 kilometres. And the 4 kilometres will represent a decade that I've lived and survived EB.
And EB, of course, is a hugely debilitating disease. Yeah. You were born with it, and the fact that you have reached this milestone of 40 is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it kind of is, and it's that bittersweet moment of like, oh my God, it's amazing, but it shouldn't be amazing in the same sense as 40. You know, you expect to reach 40 when you're younger, but not everyone does. So it's amazing. I'm the 3rd person with my form of EB to get to 40. So it is amazing, and it has been celebrated and will be celebrated again with Colin. So.
Yeah. Well, the funding, I suppose, at the moment is a huge concern for Deborah Ireland and for EB.
Yes.
Before we go into how people can help you with that now, tell us what your form of EB is and what your daily routine looks like living with this.
Okay, so my form of EB is recessive dystrophic EB, or epidermolysis bullosa, so recessive dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. And my daily routine varies. So on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday is a full bandage change that can take 4 hours, excruciating, painful, like it's beyond words. There are no words to describe how painful that is. And that's done. And then I have to sleep because not only have the amount of medication, but the pain I'm in with that. So yeah, it's not easy. So then I rest, and then I try to watch TV or listen to music that evening. So that's kind of those days are kind of just rest days and taking it easy days. And then on other days, then I try to get out and about as much as I can. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'd go out and about, as much as I can. Try to stay independent, because if you don't get out of the bed, you're going to live in your head, you're going to start thinking and wondering. So I try to get out and about and stay independent.
Yeah. So a full bandage change for you, because with EB, it's your membranes, your skin membranes are affected, really.
Yeah, I'm missing collagen 7 in my skin, so it means that the 2 layers, the epidermis and the dermis, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
The epidermis.
Yeah.
So the epidermis and the dermis, the 2 layers, it's like the collagen, I'm missing the collagen, so the collagen is like the Velcro or the glue that holds them together. And so when I'm missing that, there's nothing there to hold them together, so they just slide along each other. So if I was to bump into you, it would tear the skin or blister the skin on my arm.
Hence the name, butterfly.
Yeah, butterfly
so
skin, yes.
As soft as gentle
the wings
as
of a butterfly.
Yeah. Now, with the bandage change comes an awful lot of medication and an awful lot of health care as well.
Yes.
How often do you have to? You've been through the mill over the last couple of years. Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
There's no point in pretending. You've had huge setbacks and huge challenges.
Very much, yeah. I've certainly. I think my first problem was I was 25, and that was my first cancer. I was going to say scare, but the first time I got cancer, and that was in my left foot. And then I got it when I was 35, and I lost my left foot. And then at 35, and then now there's been biopsies and everything all through the years since I'm kind of early 20s, kind of since adulthood. But they were my only 2 cancer problems, or the only time I had cancer. So, and then when I was 39, I was rushed to A&E and diagnosed with severe pneumonia and sepsis. And I was told if I waited another 48 hours, I wouldn't have made it. So it's been everywhere, and I've had infections and hospital admissions. I've just only a couple of weeks ago come out of hospital itself, so it's been really hard. Yeah.
The budget was recent
Yes.
enough. Huge disappointment there.
Big disappointment. We looked for just over 600,000, which is not even 0.003% of the health budget, not the entire budget, but the health budget. And we got a big fat 0. We got nothing, not even 100,000. We didn't get anything from the budget this year. And what we were looking for, that 600,000 would have provided ring-fenced nursing care. So that would have provided all our patients with nursing care who actually aren't getting them at the moment. So there's parents out there doing their children's dressings at the moment. A mother and a father should be a mother and a father, not their nurse, not their parent, not just a mother and a father there to hold their hand. It would have gone towards a psychologist, you know, an EB psychologist in St. James's, because as you said, at 40, all the adults who have EB have been put through the ringer. You know, it's not easy. It would have gone towards so many things, you know, so it's a huge disappointment.
Because of that, you're very dependent on donations from the public and fundraising.
Yes, yes.
And we'll go back to what we originally talked about as well, is this fantastic marathon achievement that you're planning at the end of October. Now, so you are going to run it with Colin.
Yes.
I think that's going to be hilarious because I've seen him on US television. I don't think he thought this through very much, did he?
Probably not. I mean, I threw it at him as an idea, thinking he'd say no, and then he was like, a few days later, he was like, I really like the idea, though. I really do like the idea, but I don't even realise, you know, the promotional work that would go with the Penguin, and you know, so much that was going on. So yeah, he's definitely trying. I mean, I've seen he's trying, but
is he updating you with his training?
Yeah, he is, and he's doing well. He's doing well. I think he'll do well, but I think he will probably walk some of it.
And of course, you'll be with him for the last 4.
And I'll be with him for the last 4K, yeah, so I can't wait.
So how much are you hoping to raise by doing this? What's your aim?
Well, our aim, at the minute, well, I'm hoping for 400,000.
Let's be positive here, we can do it.
Yeah, 400,000.
Yeah.
I would love to go higher and say more, but 400,000 we're aiming for, and that'd be great, because as you said, the government have provided us with nothing, so we rely 100% on public funding. So if it's a £5, if it's €50, every little helps, it doesn't matter. So if people can give anything, I would hope for that.
And how do they donate to you? And poor Colin.
Poor Colin, yeah. You'll see Colin on RTE or Virgin Media and crawling across the line. I'll be somewhere there in the background. Sorry, you can donate by going to deborah.ie/run-to-40.
Run to 40.
Run to 40.
And listen, we can't wait to see you cross the line.
I can't wait to see you too.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today.
Thank you so much for coming down to Abbey.
I know, sure, where else would I be?
It's a great place to be.
Isn't it?
Support Deborah in any way you can.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, my lady. Cut!
What a remarkable woman. I swear to God, she's one of my very favourite people in the world, and I'm telling you, talking to her puts all life's problems into very sharp focus. And of course, a reminder that you can donate to Emma and Colin's cause at deborah.ie/run-to-40. I'm not sure Colin will be able to make it. I think that they might need to get another chair for him. He hasn't trained very much.
Do it even if it's on all fours. Good luck to you, Colin. After the break, just what are the big interior colour trends for 2025? We'll be finding out from Derek in just a few minutes.
You're very welcome back. If you're thinking of doing some home renovations over the next few months, then look no further.
Yes, our very own Derek O'Hartigan is on the search for some DIY inspiration.
How are you getting on, Derek?
Yeah, Gurmila team, we're in our element here this morning, broadcasting live from the PTSB Ideal Home Show exhibition down here at the Simmons Court Arena in the RDS in Dublin. Joanne Mooney is with us from DFS. Joanne, tell us where we're at this morning.
Hi Derek, it's great to have you here. So I'm going to be on the DFS Interiors Theatre this afternoon talking about creativity at home, something I'm really passionate about.
Your journey, your creative journey, in fact, didn't start out in interiors and home design because, in fact, you were a dental nurse.
I was a dental nurse for 15 years and I resigned from my job to pursue a career in creativity and inspiring creativity in others, both in interiors, fashion and just overall, just creativity.
I mean, did people think you were mad when you jumped ship?
Absolutely, civil service job, yeah, they thought I was mad.
Speaking of creativity, this is one of your designs here. Look at this, so I'm just going to put this on your shoulder. There we go. This looks absolutely incredible. Tell us how you made this.
So this is made of loads of wool pom-poms. It was an old jacket I had, and I wore it to actually my first, my solo exhibition I had in last year. So.
And also, Punch Design is one of your mainstays.
Yeah, so this is, I do punch needle workshops where I teach punch needle to inspire creativity in others, because I think it's really important that we keep creativity alive, especially in this day and age where we're all on our phones and we have social media and everything, just to make something with your hands and sit down and be creative.
Absolutely. Now, it's not about cost, because the thing about you is it's all about doing it on a budget.
Absolutely. I mean, you can buy wool in the Euro shop. Everything is kind of really cheap to do, so it is all about using your creativity and not spending a lot of money.
And you said we're all on our own little creative journey, and I mean, things can be done at home, but as we said, on that cheap budget.
Absolutely, yeah. Even when you're decorating your home, you know, you can do things yourself. I'm all about DIY, thinking outside the box, being creative. Do your own wallpaper, paint your windows, you know, just be creative at home. I think it just, you know, your personality should be reflected in your home. And I'm going to be speaking about that today on the DFS stage, and there's loads of really inspiring speakers as well. So
all right, well, best of luck with that.
Great
and we're loving the pom-pom colours here this morning. Now, Jane Wither, all the way from Dulux Heritage. Good morning to you, Jane. Jane, colour plays such an important role in our homes.
It absolutely does. The Dulux Heritage Collection, we have 112 absolutely beautiful, timeless colours. You've got a mix of period colours and contemporary shades, and they really do evoke a sense of feeling when we create them in our home.
Now, you're calling this luxury in a tin. I mean, what colours should we be looking out for this season?
So, the whole collection is really a timeless collection. So whether you're leaning into a trend, like something like, I suppose, colour distribution, like colour drenching at home. So that's when you paint everything the same colour, which is absolutely beautiful. Something like waxed khaki here, which is a beautiful green, that will absolutely work. You can put it on your walls, your ceiling, and your woodwork.
What do you make of people at home painting walls two different colours?
Well, that's absolutely up to them. And do you know what? The team here at Dulux Heritage, the colour consultants, can absolutely help anybody over the weekend. So Ireland AM viewers can come along and have a chat with any of our colour consultants to help them on their colour journey, and we will absolutely help them.
By the way, what are the main trends this season?
Oh, lots of dark neutrals and some soft neutrals too.
Soft neutrals and dark neutrals. OK, do you want to come to my home and paint my walls?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we've got the one and only Dermot Gavin. Good morning to you, Dermot.
Good morning. Is this a soft neutral or a loud neutral?
I'd say that's pretty loud anyway. I mean, it's not only about creating, you know, that colour palette in terms of paint, but also you can use plants very efficiently and very effectively within the home.
Or you can just enjoy them and grow them, apart from seeing them as part of the decor. Everybody loves growing indoor plants. It started about, or it was revived as a trend about 10 years ago, but especially young people. So the idea of bringing houseplants down to the RDS, down to this giant shed surrounded by interior design, is really great fun. So we've arranged with Don Stores, and it's down over here.
Yeah. Now, tell us about what plants we should, you know, be growing at home at this time of year.
Well, everything. We're retreating in from the gardens at this time of the year. The weather, well, it's meant to be getting a little bit
cooler,
but
it's still very mild, right?
Very mild.
Yeah.
So things like the bird of paradise, orchids, any of the kumquats, any of those citrus fruits, lemons, or terrariums and bottle gardens are very, very popular because they're great to make. Everybody can grow them. There's so little looking after in them. So all the foliage plants are on trend, and anything that gives people a bit of a project or a job to do.
Isn't that lovely? That is absolutely beautiful.
So it's a little garden in a...
It's happiness in a jar.
Exactly, exactly.
I have one of these at home, these beautiful ferns. How do you look after them if they get dried out and burnt?
So this is the asparagus fern, and it loves a moist place. So something like your bathroom or your kitchen where there's a little bit of steam around. But you were telling me earlier that you mist them.
Yeah.
I can give you another little tip for misting houseplants. Use rainwater.
Oh, rainwater? Okay, so collect it from the roof.
Yeah, tepid rainwater. They absolutely, they love that. But ferns are just, these are the maidenhair fern in a bathroom. Just glorious.
Obviously, coming up to Halloween, people decorating their houses and homes. What should they be doing at home?
At home, any of these plants that provide that spot of colour. So we have the little kumquats over there, which are the very Halloween colour just at the moment, the colour of a pumpkin. But any bit of joy. You see these miniature orchids that we have, They're just so much fun.
Aren't they gorgeous? And obviously coming into the big C, Christmas just around the corner. I mean, how do people keep their Christmas trees alive, Dermot?
Put them in water. So when they're cut, when you get them home, cut them again. Put them in a bucket of water, rocks around them to keep them stable.
Okay, cut them again into water, keep them stable. Loving that. Dermot Gavin, thank you so much. Next up, and finally, we've got the one and only Cavan's finest, Neville Maguire. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Let's talk about what you're doing down here then for the weekend.
So I am doing 3 cookery demos, and we're talking about all kind of Christmas recipes. I'm going to be doing master classes, knife skills, using my pots, pans and knives, and showing people, one of the most asked questions, how to cook the perfect steak, and show me a bit of chopping too.
How do you cook the perfect steak? Because I'm a steak man now myself.
Oh, me too. And we have the best meat in the world. So you marinate with a little bit of rapeseed oil, garlic, and you fry it in a good hot pan with a little bit of butter, thyme, garlic, and that's it.
Your journey, of course, started in Blackloin in Cavan. You're still up there.
I am.
Yeah, and your dad, Joe, I suppose, was your inspiration man as well.
Yeah, my mum and dad, like, they started the business. We're open 35 years, so it's been an amazing journey. And seeing the way the Irish palate has changed, you know, they're embracing food, they're enjoying, and they want to know where their food is coming from, local produce. And, you know, I think the palate has definitely got more sophisticated.
Yeah, you scooped that award this year as well up in Ulster.
We did. We're very happy. We have a great team. We have 60 staff, so we're blessed with the team that we have. And, you know, it's about giving people a lovely experience. And that's what we're going to do here over the weekend with the Dunnes Stores team. You know, I'll be doing some lovely recipes. I have my new book out, which we've just launched, my 20 cookbook, Eat Out at Home. So it's about entertaining, cooking for family and friends, because they're the most popular classes that we have in the cookery school. And I've made you a little dessert.
Oh, well, we couldn't leave without trying this. This is a sherry trifle, my mum's favourite as well. So I'm going to try
Plenty of port and sherry in it for you. This is one of the recipes we're doing over the weekend.
Oh, God, that's very tasty.
Isn't it?
No, but I'm going to tuck into this. Neville Maguire and all the team here. Back to you guys in the studio. Oh,
enjoy. Good man.
OK, dessert before 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's my kind of meal.
That's my kind of breakfast, absolutely. Now, we'll take a quick break, but still to come, we're learning how to pull off the perfect crime with Roy Grace author Peter James.
Plus, we're putting together the perfect menopause exercise routine. And we've got beef pie in the kitchen. We'll see you in a few minutes. Yes, you're very welcome back to the final hour of this morning's Ireland AM, and this is going to be the best hour of the lot.
Oh, the best hour ever on Ireland AM, ever.
Yeah. Ever. They're all equally amazing.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
This one's going up. We're going up in an even bigger level.
Okay.
What do you see?
Because it's us. We're fabulous.
Let's deliver.
Right. Still to come this morning, he's man-made gloves for the Queen, and now he writes hard-boiled detective thrillers for the Telebox. Author of the Roy Grace series, Peter James, is with us shortly.
We'll also be slipping into our hypothetical yoga pants to learn some all-ages pelvic floor exercises.
Does that mean you haven't brought your yoga pants?
Yes, that's why I said hypothetical.
Okay.
I didn't no yoga pants either. No one wants to see me in yoga pants.
So you'll be able to do
You can do these without the yoga pants, these exercises.
And after that workout, we'll need a feed. So we've got some beef and mushroom pie lined up in the kitchen. I'm starving.
I'm actually doing my exercises now, and you couldn't even tell.
You couldn't even tell.
Pelvic floor exercises.
So am I.
Not busy doing mine.
It's magic.
Let's all do them together.
That's when my eyes suddenly open.
More on that a little later on. Now we'll have a final check on your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. The headline there reads, ECB rates predicted to reach 2% or lower by summer. The paper reports that the European Central Bank is looking set to reduce interest rates to 2% or lower before the summer. But the cumulative impact of these cuts, seeing the annual cost of home loans for almost 200,000 borrowers fall by more than €2,000.
Front page of the Irish Independent reads, Sinn Féin senator claimed travel expenses after he quit. The paper writes that the former Sinn Féin senator continued to claim expenses for accommodation and travel to Leinster House, even after he told the party he was resigning from the Seanad.
The Irish Examiner leads with, they let Kitty May down on so many levels. It writes that a devastated mother has told of a nightmare sequence of errors that left her 2-year-old daughter with a profound brain injury, stating that she pleaded with medics to, quote, take her clearly deteriorating condition more seriously.
On to the tabloids. The Herald leads with missing Kieran last seen in senior infants. The paper writes that the last confirmed sighting of missing 8-year-old Kieran Duran was when he was a senior infants pupil in Dundalk more than 2 years ago.
The Irish Mirror writes, our kind, funny, brave soul. The paper writes that Liam Payne's death has been met by a global outpouring of grief as his family, friends and fans paid emotional tributes after the singer's death was announced late Wednesday night.
The Daily Mail leads with record label dumped Liam before fatal drugs binge. They write that Liam Payne was dropped by his record label just days before his death.
And finally, the front page of the Star reads Liam's last hours. It writes that Liam's family have said they are heartbroken by the singer's death as police frantically piece together the final erratic last hours of his life.
Now, today is International Menopause Day. We had a panel on earlier discussing it. Bernadette texted in saying, "Good morning, great piece on menopause. My friend recently asked her GP for HRT. Her symptoms are hugely impacting her life. He replied that she probably got the notion she needs HRT from too much Instagram and refused to give it to her. This is why women are suffering."
This gives me so much rage.
Yeah.
And do you know what? GPs are over-prescribing antidepressants to women who show up with symptoms of menopause because they think, they're depressed because they throw out tablets for depression. It's so infuriating that so many medics, and a lot of them are, but the majority of them have no clue.
And they should be listening to the women who come into their office and ask for this, you know?
Yeah.
Alice says, thank you so much for talking about menopause this morning. I went through the changes in my early 30s and I was so embarrassed. Hopefully my daughter won't feel the same when she does, thanks to conversations like this.
Mary says, so glad to hear someone talking about misinformation around HRT. I feel like I can't open my mouth sometimes because people have such strong and misguided opinions. Get your information from the right place. That is so important.
Yeah, now, my wife was told that HRT would be a no-no for her because...
For some people it is,
yeah. Because of the surgery that she's had.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, it's good we're having this conversation. And Therese says, so glad Elaine said it's not just hot flushes. Menopause is so much more than just losing your period. Hopefully the next generation will be doubly educated as we are now.
I would hope so. Like, I've heard more about menopause in the last few years than I'd ever heard before.
Yeah.
But I hope it's not just my age as I'm getting older, and I hope that younger women are actually hearing about it.
There's greater awareness. People are more open to talk it because how many women just suffer in silence?
Yeah. Anyway, keep them coming. 0896 111 111.
Coming up after the break, we're talking to the man selected as Queen Camilla's favourite crime author. Peter James will be with us in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're very welcome back to Ireland AM. Our next guest made his name penning the thrilling adventures of D.I. Roy Grace, but he has a few mad stories, to say it mildly, of his own too.
Boy, does he have a few stories. Author Peter James is with us now off the back of his latest Roy Grace bestseller, One of Us is Dead. But his books also inspired the series Grace, which is available on Virgin Media Play. Let's take a look.
This is a high-risk operation and must be kept discreet or she may not take the bait. Glenn will be briefing the Argus on their involvement. Digital forensics have created an entire online presence for one J. Paul Cornell, a Brighton multi-millionaire who's moving back to his hometown. We can't rule out that wherever Cassie is, Tooth might follow. We've arranged to insert Norman as a special guest at an annual charity auction where he'll be donating the Star Prize. Money will be flowing, all eyes will be on him, including Cassie's.
It's absolutely brilliant. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with Grace, and I think John Sim is. If somebody had asked me to do a police e-fit when I first created Roy Grace back in 2003, it would have come up with John Sim.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was kind of the detective you had in your mind.
Totally in my head all the time. I mean, he's modelled on a real-life detective called David Gaylor, who the career modelled on him, but the actual image of him was John Sim. When ITV phoned me up and said, what do you think about John Sim playing Roy Grace? I said, I would bite your hands off. And I spent 3 weeks not sleeping, hoping John would say yes.
Well, thankfully he did, and I'm sure he's very, very thankful that he did too. You two have become friends.
We've become good mates, and it's great. You know, we share a love of seafood and quite a lot of white wine. We've had several very boozy lunches in which we've set the world to rights.
Okay, and you meet with John, it's double dating as well? The girls go too?
We've double dated. We've even double dated at Scotland Yard Crime Museum. Well, they call it the Black Museum, because John said, I'd love to see that. And you can only get to see it normally if you're a serving police officer, because they use it to train detectives. But I managed through a police contact. And I could not get John out of that museum. He was looking at the most gruesome things.
Research purposes, though. Research purposes. He needed these. It's very above board and very necessary. Now, one thing that fascinates me about your story is Queen Camilla is quite the fan of yours. You appeared on her podcast, but it wasn't your first encounter. Tell us about that.
No, the first encounter I ever was when I made the film Merchant of Venice years ago, and then Prince Charles and the Duchess of Camilla Parker Bowles. It was their first public appearance together.
All right.
This was going back in 2004, and we had the charity premiere for the Trust. And I remember we were in the line and Prince Charles came along, very charming, hello, hello, and Camilla was trailing behind. I thought, I must say something interesting to you. So she got to me, I said, are you still smoking? And she said, do you want somebody to go and have a fag with behind the bike shed? But then, segue to about 10 years ago, I get a phone call out of the blue from a friend. He said, whatever you're doing, stop doing it, go out and buy a copy of the Daily Mail. So I did. And there on page 3 she was then Duchess of Cornwall, in her office, with 10 of my Roy Grace books behind her.
Wow.
And she said I was one of her 2 favourite authors and I was her favourite crime writer. And I wrote to her and I said, thank you so much. And she wrote me a really charming, handwritten 2-page letter back. And we then had this kind of, over the next books, Roy Grace books I wrote, I'd send her one and she'd always write back. She wrote back one letter saying, it kept me company on my trip to Australia. I don't know what I'm going to read on the way back.
So you quickly wrote another book.
Yes. And then she started it's called the Duchess's Reading Room. It's now the Royal Reading Room, which was on Instagram during lockdown. And she chose me as one of her kind of first authors on that. And then she started the Royal Reading Room podcast. And I was featured on that, in which she was asked who her favourite fictional detective was. And she said Roy Grace.
Excellent.
That is...
And I just wish my mother was still alive, because she made the Queen's gloves and she would have been so proud. You know.
OK, you weren't tempted to start making gloves for royalty yourself?
No, the only connection I have is a very tenuous one, in that Shakespeare's father was a glove maker.
OK.
So, hey, it's in the DNA.
Now, but Queen Camilla isn't your only massively famous encounter. Tell us the story behind you and Orson Welles, because I think this is absolutely gas.
I went to film school because I always wanted to be a writer, but I never thought I'd succeed as a writer. So I thought I'd go into film and television. And I was a student in London. I was living in a converted garage. And my rent was £8 a week. And my dad gave me enough money for the rent, for food, and my train fare to get to the college. And I met this very posh girl. I wanted to invite her out on a date, and I couldn't afford. So I thought I'm going to have to earn some money. And I walked past a newsagent, and I saw a sign that said, "Cleaner wanted, apply Mrs. Wells." And it was just round the corner in Fulham. So I went round to this quite elegant kind of townhouse, and I knocked on the door, and this lady in her 40s sort of looked down at me. She said, I was really expecting a female. I said, I can clean, honestly. She looked at me very dubiously. She said,
could you clean?
Hmm?
Could you clean?
He needed the money. There was a hot date that he needed to go on.
No. Never. I don't want to sound sort of grand, but both my parents worked in the family business, and we had a live-in cook at that time, so I was never allowed in the kitchen. And
fair enough.
And I didn't know this stuff. Anyway, she said, OK, I'll take you on this morning, 3 hours. I'll pay you 10 shillings an hour, which was a fortune back then, if you can clean the kitchen, and we'll see how you go. So I go in the kitchen. I thought, what do I do? And I opened a cupboard, and there was a packet of Flash. Now, I don't know if Flash is still made, but there used to be an advert on telly in those days, all around the house, spring clean with Flash.
Yeah.
So I read the instructions, cleaned the kitchen, and she was impressed. And she said, OK, I'll take you on a month's trial, 3 mornings a week.
Yeah.
Thought, yeah, great. So 2 days later, I rocked up, and she wanted me to clean the skirting board in the hall. So I'm on my knees, with my trusty Flash.
Of course.
Of course. And suddenly, all these letters come through the letterbox. Blumph. And I scoop them all up, and they're all addressed to Orson Welles. And I'm not always the sharpest tack in the box, so I think, stupid postman, he's delivered this to the wrong Wells household. That moment, the front door opens, and in he walked. Tall guy in this big coat and a big hat. And he looked at me like I was something the cat had dropped. And I am tongue-tied, right? I'm at film. I want to say I'm at film school. You know, I'm trying to get the film business. And he goes, "Good morning." And he steps over him and he goes up the stairs. So I spent the rest of the morning, and he didn't reappear. And then I came back 2 days later, and he'd gone off to America to make a movie. And after a month, Mrs. Wells said, very nicely, she said, I don't really think you're cut out for this. And I was fine.
At least you got a month. At least you got a month.
And you got a good morning out of Orson.
Yeah.
And a great story.
Yeah, I did get the date, but it didn't work out.
Oh, didn't I? OK, so not to worry. Yeah. But you know what? You got the story.
That's right.
Which is all that's important. You are quite dedicated when it comes to research, to the point where you got into a coffin and got somebody to nail you inside, to put you inside the box, nail it shut, and walk away. That is very brave. Like if it was me, I'd make sure I'm not doing this coming up to dinner hour. I don't want to be in there for too long. But you did this.
I'm very claustrophobic, but I'm a great believer in doing research. I think people who read are intelligent. And when you read a story, you don't just want a page-turning story. You want to believe that the author knows what he or she is writing about, and maybe learn as well other things. And with the first Roy Grace novel, One of Us is Dead, it starts with a stag night prank that goes wrong, and the groom is left buried alive.
So this brand new novel, that's what it's talking about?
No, that was the first one, which
right.
is dead simple, and the groom is buried alive in a coffin. So I had myself put in a coffin for half an hour. And I am claustrophobic. I was terrified. It was the worst half hour of my life. And also, I was at a funeral director's old family firm, and there was only one guy there. They were all out collecting bodies and attending funerals. And this elderly granddad who'd put me in a coffin. And I thought, what if he drops dead?
Thankfully he did.
Yes, this new one.
One of Us is Dead, which is the brand new one, which just come out. That started about once a fortnight. And I know a lot of writers get the same thing. Somebody will come up to me and say, Peter, I've got a great idea for a story. You're going to want to write, aren't you? And I said, well, and I say politely, I say, tell me the story. And it's usually a pile of pants. Yeah. But, you know, everybody has a story, but not necessarily one I want to spend a year of my life researching and writing. But on this occasion, it was about 2 years ago, and the son of an old friend came up and said, Peter, I've got a story you're going to want to write. And I said, John, I'm sure you have. No. I'm going to tell you the story. You're going to write it. Promise me. I promise you. So I said, OK. Anyway, he said, a guy I know who's proper dodgy was at a funeral a few months back, and he arrived late. It was a country church, pelting with rain, and he goes in, and the church is packed, not a single seat available. He has to stand at the back, and halfway through the service, he sees a bloke sitting 6 rows in front of him on a pew, whose funeral he went to 2 years ago and gave the eulogy at.
We'll leave it there, because dun, 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 watch this space. What a way.
And hence the title, One of Us is Dead.
And I thought, yeah, I have to write this.
It's been so wonderful chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
OK. A reminder, Peter James' latest book, One of Us is Dead, is available now from all the good bookshops in Ireland. Plus, you can catch him chatting about the book tonight at the Lexicon Library in Dunleary.
And if that isn't enough, you can also catch up on the first 4 seasons of Grace, available to stream now on Virgin Media Play.
We'll be back with some pelvic floor exercises after this quick break.
You're going to do... You're very welcome back. Well, according to an NHS study, 1 in 3 women will experience urinary incontinence in their lifetime. And one way to train your body against these issues is through pelvic floor exercises.
And here with a few techniques you can learn at home now is Assistant Professor in Women's Health at DCU and Pelvic Health Physiotherapist Helen Keeble. Morning, Helen.
Hello, how are you?
Great to have you on. So you may chat through with us first the muscles that we're going to be using today.
Yeah, so the pelvic floor muscles are all internal muscles, but they are really crucial at basically helping to prevent and also treat bladder leaks. And like you said, 1 in 3 women will have bladder leaks at some point in their life, but what most don't know is that actually we can do these squeezes and they really help to prevent and also to treat them.
Yeah. Does, you mentioned 1 in 3 women are affected, but does that affect certain age groups more than others? And if so, why?
Yeah, do you know, it actually affects all age groups. There's like, no one is kind of safe, if you like, so it can literally affect everybody. Like in clinic, I would see people as young as kind of 16, 18, all the way up to 80s and beyond. So there's certain things that make us more at risk, like kind of certain activities, or age is a factor, obviously pregnancy, childbirth, those sorts of things that most people know about. But it really can affect anyone at any stage.
But a lot of people think it would be a result of childbirth, but like, I'll never go on a trampoline again, and I've never birthed a child, but it can be absolutely anyone, really.
Yeah, it really, really can. And things like trampolining is high impact, and that, like, when you look at all the research into what makes us leak during exercise, it will come down to high impact and high load. So that is kind of just textbook, like, bladder leak territory.
Okay. And what are the kind of symptoms or the signs that you might need to do these exercises?
Yeah, so it's just if you don't feel 100% confident in your bladder. It also can affect our bowels, also our sexual function as well, because they all unite at the pelvic floor muscles. But also by doing the squeezes, you can help to prevent the leaks from happening in the first place. But the same one squeeze will actually prevent and treat. Okay. So it's very easy.
And we did mention there giving birth. So post-birth, what are the changes that people can expect to see?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of delivery. If you have a C-section, that protects your pelvic floor in that way, but obviously there's other things going on with the C-section. But if you have a vaginal delivery, then it does obviously affect the pelvic floor muscles more.
Would be mad if it didn't really. Pushing out an entire person. It's going to affect your muscles there, realistically speaking.
This is it. And like the muscles are amazing. Like they are designed to kind of like stretch and recover and everything else. But of course, if you have stitches and things like that, you know, everybody's journey is different, and that all can affect kind of like the recovery process. But our muscles do recover, and we can train them, and that's the whole point, is that if we can train them, because these pelvic floor squeezes are expertly proven to work, it's just that so many people just aren't doing them or just don't know about doing them.
And these exercises we're about to do, are they suitable for any age?
Yes, any age.
Okay, any age, and you can do them anywhere, can't you?
You can.
I know. But a lot of people, that's the thing, you can do them. I know a lot of friends of mine will do their pelvic floor exercises when they're maybe stopped at traffic lights. That's a way to do, because if you put it in a daily routine and daily habit, it will stop these, what are embarrassing bladder leaks, which are not good for anyone, really, are they?
This is it, and it's all about habit stacking. So like you say, in the car, when you're watching Island AM, like when you're brushing your teeth, like anything that you're doing kind of regularly, and hopefully most days, because we're trying to get everyone to squeeze the day every day, and it does take daily practice to work, and it takes a few months, but they really, really have been proven to work.
Love it. I might do it during fashion in future.
Yeah, maybe. But if you are experiencing these leaks, I mean, you do have to prevent it in some way and guard it in some way, because they can be quite humiliating if you leak in public.
Yeah, this is it. And Always Discreet are on a mission to really try and help to get the message out there to squeeze the day every day. But in the meantime, like even as a physio, I do recommend that people do kind of wear protection. And there is a difference between kind of bladder leak protection and sanitary protection. So it's really crucial to choose the right product and just to wear those in the meantime, and then get on with the squeezes. They do take a few months, but they do work.
Okay, let's get into them. Yeah, let's get into them then. So explain to us how exactly we do them.
Yes, so they used to be called the secret exercise, so you can't really see anything happening from the outside. So
this might be a slightly boring exercise demonstration for anyone watching at home, but I'm telling you, we will be doing these. We are going to be doing these right now.
We'll try and be as expressive as we can with our faces.
Here okay. And do you know, there was research out not so long ago that was checking different instructions of how to do the squeeze. And do you want to have a guess as to what instruction came out best to do your squeeze?
I don't know.
So it was actually imagining that you're stopping wind.
Oh.
So it used to be, we used to tell people, imagine that you're trying to stop the flow of urine, and that would get the activation to work. And that does still work a little bit, but to get
the like, where is it and what do I do? It's like, there's so much going on down there. There's so much plumbing.
Yeah, there is. So it's basically the muscles directly underneath, so up in between your legs. And if you activate from the back passage, like if you imagine that you're trying to stop wind, so what you're trying to feel when you're activating them is like a tensioning and a lift. And it should come from the back. Even though you're trying to prevent bladder, you get more muscle recruitment if you're going from the back.
Okay, right. Explain us step by step what we're doing now here.
So
ready?
We're going to do
exercise. Here we go.
We're going to do a deep breath in first, because that's really good for flexibility, and that's as important as strength. So we're going to take a big belly breath. So take a big breath into your tummy, and then breathe out. Now squeeze and lift from the back. And then let go. and then you start again.
I'm burning loads of calories. That's loads of them. Yeah.
So you can kind of make it into that 4-step process. So breathe in.
So how
breathe
far
out,
up in your muscle
let go
floor should you be feeling this? Is it like, just for want of a bit, like, is it just there, or should it be going all the way up here, and are you contracting everything up to your waist?
It's a really good point. So we don't want to see really anything happening in the abs.
Oh, right.
So if you're really using your abs, or you're holding your breath, or you're clenching your bum cheeks, and you're doing too much, and actually in clinic, like I always say, like less is more. As in, you know, and the pelvic floor muscles are quite subtle. If you've never done them before, then start lying down, because actually standing is the hardest position to do them in.
Oh, really?
So if you're watching this thinking, oh my God, I can't feel a thing, then lay down, take a few deep breaths, and then just try and get that activation from the back.
Okay, great. And do you have to build up kind of a resistance to them, or like how many you can do in a row, or can you just go for it?
Yeah,
I'm exhausted already.
So am I. That's what I was thinking, like, because I thought, how long do I have to go for here? Like,
a minute.
So ideally, if you're trying to strengthen, you'd be looking at doing 10 short ones.
Okay.
So we just did a short one, and 10 long ones twice a day. And the long ones you hold for 10 seconds.
All right, that's
7, 8, 9.
Helen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very elastic now down there. Right, after the break, we're having an early lunch over in the kitchen. Lucky us.
Welcome back. We're almost done now for the morning, but we couldn't go without a packed lunch for the road.
and Tara Walker is looking after our bellies this morning. Tara, what are you making for us?
Good morning, folks. So I have a lovely hearty beef and mushroom pie for us today.
It's the weather for something like this.
Isn't it? Isn't it? And it's just so comforting, kind of. So look, I'm just going to start, as always, I'm browning off my meat here. So I have chuck beef here, which just is, I don't know if we can see on camera, but there's quite a lot of fat content in there, which is good because the fat is going to render out during the cooking and give us lovely flavour.
That's where the flavour is.
Exactly, exactly. And it keeps it lovely and kind of the whole thing nice and moist as well.
So this is a cheaper cut of meat.
Exactly, yes, yeah. And you can see my pieces are cut in quite big chunks as opposed to a real fine dice, because I want them to hold their shape during the cooking, you know, because I want to give this at least 3 hours. So I'm just browning it off basically in some rapeseed oil because it's a high burning point. I always like to use it, and it's an Irish product. And when you get this nice golden caramelisation on it, that's the time to take it out.
Okay, so it doesn't take long.
Cooked. No, it doesn't take, but you need your pan really hot. So I started this during the ad break, and I have it on a really high sear. And the reason you want a really high sear is A, for the coloration, but B, to seal in all of those beautiful juices. So if you're ever doing this and suddenly your pan is kind of flooded with loads of liquid, that's the meat losing its own juice.
Okay.
So you'd be better off just skipping this step altogether. Some people skip it. But what I love about doing this is that you get, look, all this lovely sticky stuff at the bottom, which is really, really important.
Because you're not going to let that go to waste, are you, Tara?
Exactly.
No.
So in here then, I'm going to add my carrot, onion, celery, your typical sort of sofrito, mirepoix, and a little pinch of salt with that just to stop it from catching and burning. Now, I'm doing this on speed up time.
Yeah, I know, but if you were going to replicate this at home, and we recommend that you do your prep before you even start cooking the beef.
Absolutely, especially because you want to kind of keep everything moving. And if you are doing a large batch, like this is actually a half batch because I have another pie here, but you know, you're going to need to do 2 batches of beef and keep the temperature up.
Okay.
So you could be chopping while you're doing those as well.
Okay.
So carrot, onion, celery, and I've got these beautiful little yellow golden carrots from my local farm, Ballymakenny farm, and just happen to throw them in there today as well, which are lovely, just lovely kind of soft flavour to them.
Gorgeous.
And with that then, I'm going to now give this maybe 5-10 minutes, you know, with the lid on. Let that steam work away, soften down the vegetables. And then I'm going to add in my tomato puree, and always cook out your tomato puree.
What do you mean
It's a
by
little
that,
bit bitter. Well, you know, it's kind of bitter.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see in recipes that you have to put a little bit of sugar in to counterbalance the bitterness of the tomato puree. But actually, when you do this, you're getting those natural sugars of caramelisation from the bottom of the pan. And that's how you're sweetening it up and kind of, you know, tempering it a little bit. Now, next up, a little knob of butter. And we're going to make a roux in here, essentially. So we're going to just pop that butter there. So this is like a flavoured roux. And this will just thicken up the sauce a little bit. So pop your flour, equal quantities, more or less. You don't have to be super precise with this kind of a dish. And cook out that roux as well.
Just mix it through.
Yeah. And while that's cooking out, I'm going to move over here. So normally, you'd be popping this in the oven for a while, and then you'd be doing your mushrooms for the last 10, 15 minutes, because the mushrooms get a bit soggy in there.
Oh, so you don't put them
No,
in
I
the
don't
rest
put
of
them
them.
in there. Look, you could. If you're cooking for family and people are not fussy, throw them in. But if you just want to make it that little bit extra nice,
if you do
you were
have
having a
someone
special
fussy
occasion,
coming for dinner.
Yeah,
exactly.
if you do.
So my mushrooms are going in there,
Just
and then
mushrooms and butter.
Just mushrooms and butter. And I just wanted to mention what I've done with my mushrooms. They're button mushrooms, and instead of washing them, because then they soak up all of the water, I'm just peeling them down. I don't know if we can see this on camera. Like any little bit of dirt like this, just take off with your knife. Just trim it back. And even if your mushroom was really bad, what you could do is just peel a little layer off like that.
Okay.
So better than washing it. Now, I know if it's really bad, you're going to have to wash it. But look, if you can try not to. And then throwing that into the butter. And over here now, look, my roux is cooked out. So you can smell like it's not that kind of raw flour smell from it. We're going to deglaze with some red wine. Now, look, you can deglaze with whatever you want here.
So it doesn't have to be a red wine.
Ale would be lovely, steak and ale pie.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done beef and stout on the show many years ago. Like there's loads of nice, you know, so you're just trying to get those lovely sticky bits up. And in classic French cuisine, they would actually deglaze 3 times. So every time you do it, you're intensifying the flavour and you're getting that lovely richness increased every time.
Could you use just stock there?
You could, absolutely, yeah. If you didn't want to use alcohol, I mean, most of the alcohol is burnt off, like by the time it's been in the oven for 3 hours and everything.
Yeah. And,
So
and the meat will cook out. If people don't like it, the bit of pink.
Oh, yes, gosh. This is only just browned now at this stage.
Yeah.
And popping the meat back in now. Covering with some stock.
There's the beef stock.
Beef stock, yeah. I use a brand called Callow because I just like it. It has less salt in it, I find. You know, some of the brands overpower the flavour of other things.
Yes.
Next up, some bay leaves. I have a bay tree at home, so I just grabbed a little branch of it, which makes it easy to take out.
You're like Snow White. She brings her own bay leaves from her garden, like.
And
Do you
black
sing when you're
peppercorns.
picking them off the tree? La la la, la la la.
Nobody wants to hear me sing.
Fair enough.
Genuinely, my choir teacher told me to mime when I was in school. That's how badly I can sing, okay?
Look at you now.
So look, here are my mushrooms now. And when they cook out, we will pop them into the pie, but only about 15, 20 minutes before the end.
Okay.
And you're going to either finish this off in the oven, and this is what's great about this type of recipe. You can either cook it low and slow, maybe 140, or in your slow cooker for 4 or 5 hours, or you can do it sort of 2.5 to 3 hours at 160, 180 kind of thing.
Okay.
Or you can do it on your hob if you want. So I'm going to just move over here. And I want to show you the pastry top. I'm not going to put it on now, but I wanted to show you what I did with the one I have in the oven. So when your dish is ready, when your meat is really tender and falling apart, you're going to rub your finger around the edge of the dish. Obviously, let it cool a little bit.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Or pour it into a separate dish either, a roasting dish. And then just with cold water, then you're going to pop your pastry on top. And then what you do is you crimp it down. So you press your finger onto the pastry, which I'll show you now. And then I just put a few little stars on the one I did earlier, just before we went to the ad break. I popped it into the oven.
That goes on top because we're almost at a time.
Yes, yeah, here we go.
And that goes back into the oven with the puff pastry on it for how long?
Yeah, so for about 15, 20 minutes or until it's golden brown. So we're going to have a little taste now.
Amazing, Tara.
And we're just going to have a quick taste so you guys can taste that lovely tender meat.
It looks beautiful. I do like the stars. It's a nice touch, isn't it?
It is. Or I have a little leaf cutter there, which is nice at this time of year for that autumnal look as well.
Yes.
And
That's golden.
And hopefully now we can see this lovely meat here.
Look at
And the
that.
sauce. It's really, really rich. So I cooked this yesterday and it had about 3 hours in the oven. And now it's had another, 20 minutes.
Now let Martin have a little
taste.
tasting of that now.
Okay.
A couple of little edible flowers just to bring the Snow
Just-
White
yeah.
vibes.
You see?
There we go.
I'm never going to call you Tara ever again. You're just going to be Snow White. to me.
Tell the 7 lads when you get home that we said hello.
Full recipe details are up on our website. You can find more from Tara on her website, tarawalker.ie. How is it, Martin?
I'll tell you in a sec. Delicious. Elaine.
Over to
you.
Elaine.
Thanks, guys. Now, coming up tomorrow, she's the comedian who roasted Donald Trump at the White House. Correspondents' dinner back in 2018. The one and only Michelle Wolf. Really, quick, hurry up! They're off coming. Is with us. Phew, you're here. This is
Okay,
you now.
artificial intelligence is here to stay. So we're asking, what are the positive uses for AI in Irish schools?
We're also looking at how best to care for our pets during the dreaded firework and banger season, the Cray 3.
Plus, we have chicken burgers in the kitchen, along with the news, sports, and weather you're waking up to. We're back tomorrow morning from 9 o'clock.
Okay, thank you to everybody who's been in touch about World Menopause Day, and lots of positive things being said about
Absolutely. Fabulous things being said as well about Emma Fogarty, the absolute legend that we'd on earlier on, who's doing the marathon for Deborah Ireland, deborah.ireland.ie. Have a look at that, how you can donate to that.
Yes, we'll be cheering them on.
Yeah,
herself and Colin Farrell. Yes.
Well, I'd say mightn't find it as easy as you might think. Anyway, more on that next weekend, I think it's on, so we'll talk about it then.
Bank holiday.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.